Are you vice chair?
Yes,
Might
but
go
it's
away.
time, but it's time to look somebody else. I've been here 2 or 3 years.
Ready to get them.
Yes, I am. You
I guess. I don't care. Hang on.
He's going to do it. Okay. Yeah, he's going to. Okay, we ready.
All right. Good evening. It's a little after 6, but we'll go ahead and get started. If you hadn't signed the sheets in the back, please do. If you want to speak on anything we've got going tonight, if you would please either silence your phones or turn them on, and I'll do the same. And we can get started.
Mr. Chair, we have two last-minute, I guess, retractions from tonight's agenda. Application 21S and application 22-1S and 22-2V. We got notice early this morning that their attorney wanted to apply for a different variance. So we're gonna wait and have everything arrive at the same meeting. So they asked that they be removed from tonight's agenda, but we had already published. So we will go through items 1 through 6. Yeah, so items 7 and items 8. will be
Okay, so
removed.
items 7 and 8 we won't address
Okay.
tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
And Newton should be over here as soon as Land Bank is done, so we'll have him to run. But we can go ahead and go into the first application if you want.
Absolutely.
Do you have an agenda, and are you asking for them to adopt the agenda?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, our first application is 21-67A, Joseph B. and Stephanie M. Dykes, owner, 1522 Etheridge Mill Road, approximately 12 acres located in land lot 151 of the Second Land District, requesting an appeal to a denial of allowing a second meter on the property. Okay, do we have anyone from that? Okay, would you please come up front, state your name, and tell us who you are, and right over here, and tell us a little bit more about the agenda you're here for.
Yes, my name is
Will
Joseph.
you raise
Dunn.
your raise your hand, please? Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. My name is Joe Dykes. I got a hot tub in November, and
I'm so sorry, that was an emergency call, please forgive me.
and my power supply at my house wasn't enough to support it, and so I called Central Georgia EMC to find out, to send someone out so I can talk to them about upgrading my power. And rather than upgrading the line from the power pole in the ground to my house, my outside meter base, both interior panels, and my service entrance cable, he recommended I put a power pole 10 feet from a permanent power box 10 feet from the power pole with a meter, so I could run off that to run a hot tub and run power to my barn. And because that would be $700 for them to do, as opposed to several $1,000s for them to do, plus several thousand more dollars for me to replace my interior wiring. So I did that, and I paid them $700 to have that done, and then they told me I needed a permit, and it got denied. So I need a permit for a meter base next to my driveway.
Okay, do we hear anything from the board?
I got a quick, who said to put the poll in?
Cody from Central Georgia EMC.
Okay, Ian's, okay, Central Georgia.
Yeah, it's literally just a small permanent power box with a 200 amp service.
Okay, now we'll hear from the staff.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, Mr. Dykes came into the Office of Community Development, had already spoken to the folks at Central Georgia EMC. They had already done the work and installed the meter base, and it was waiting inspection. There is not a power company in the state of Georgia that will, connect power absent a inspection, so they all have to be, they do all have to be permitted. At the time, we had a different building official, we had a different director at the Community Development Office. They had established a policy governing power to service accessory structures. And if there is no approved special exception for a general home occupation that necessitates a separate power meter, and the accessory structure is within 1,000 feet of the primary structure, it is established that a separate meter is not necessary and will not be approved. So if you go back through our code, there is absolutely nothing in code that limits that second power meter unless it's going to be a mother-in-law suite, which states it must be wired from the main house as an accessory structure. But there's nothing that limits the number of meters that you can have on a property when it comes in. Mr. Dykes does have a special case when it comes in because the outlet box in the house that he has is full. So it would be a hardship on him to go back and rewire the entire house to upgrade the level of service rather than just dropping the meter. It's commonplace with most power companies that comes in. So you see in the staff report, when required, any owner, authorized agent, or contractor who desires to construct, enlarge, alter, repair, remove, demolish, or change the occupancy of a building or a structure, or to erect, install, enlarge, alter, repair, remove, convert, or replace any electrical, gas, mechanical, or plumbing system, the installation of which is regulated by the construction codes, that a permit is required. So a permit is required. Mr. Dykes has done the proper thing, but he was denied at our office. So staff actually does recommend, or actually, since I'm new, I don't know if this is part of another Spalding County kind of, code that came in, but there's nothing that's written in our ordinance that precludes him from being able to apply for a permit, and get a second power meter that comes in. So our recommendation from staff was, and I've talked with the building official, that Mr. Dykes be approved to be allowed to have his second permit, but we stipulate the two conditions. He does own a camper, so the camper cannot be used as livable quarters or rental accommodations at any point in time, during his, tenure at the house. He can hook it up and charge it, maintain it for, or, routine maintenance to prepare to a trip or coming back from a trip and clean it up. And the structure itself, since it's also stipulated in code that a mother-in-law suite must be powered from the main house, we stipulate that the structure can never be converted into a mother-in-law suite. And with those two stipulations, staff does recommend approval.
Okay, since the staff have approved, do we hear anything from the board? A
I'll make a
motion?
motion for approval of application 21-67A.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Have been approved, and second, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is 21-68S, Frank Cable, owner 1183 North Walker Mill Road, approximately 7.03 acres, located in land lot 46 of the Second Land District, requesting a special exemption to construct a bardominium style house with the AR1 district. Do we have someone here represent this? Okay, I need someone that's going to speak, and raise your right hand. Tell us who you are and what reason you are
Yeah,
here.
my name's Chris Cable, and I'm his son, and we're looking to try to get this built.
Okay.
He's not wanting to do a conventional style house. I'm one of
Can
the
we get your
neighbors.
address for the record?
Yeah,
My address, 1137 North Walker's Mill Road. I'm actually the neighbor to the property, so
okay.
just looking to try to get this built for them. And, we built our house with the intentions of living there for quite a while, me and my wife, and that's what they want to live beside us. And, the plan is eventually, if they ever, when they unfortunately do pass, is we'll have a storage building to use afterwards. So,
Okay, do we hear anything from the board? Any questions?
No.
We'll hear from the staff now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the subject property is 1183 North Walker's Mill Road. It is approximately 7.03 acres in size. It is currently zoned AR1, which is agricultural residential, and the application before you requests special exception permission to construct a barn-dominium style house. So barn-dominiums are actually permissible in the AR1 zoning via the special exception process only. So it must come before this board and before the Board of Commissioners before it can be granted. Appendix 4, Article 5, Section 503 of the code, states that the barn-dominium must meet the following criteria. It must be a minimum lot size of 5 acres. Minimum front yard setback is 200 feet. The minimum roof pitch should be a 412, and a true 412 roof pitch. Porch depth of at least 6 feet located on the front of the structure with a roof pitch minimum vertical rise of 3 feet for each 12 feet of horizontal run. So if you've got a porch or gable, the roof can be a 312. At least 25% of each of the side of the structure shall be constructed of conventional exterior materials. So that means that the whole thing can't just be metal. It's got to have some type of board and batten siding, brick, stucco, something of that nature, at least 25% on each side of the structure. Exterior columns and or posts must be at least 6 inches by 6 inches in size or greater, if required by an applicable building code. They actually just upgraded it to a 6 by 6 in 2018, so that's still compliant. All industrial or garage bay doors must be located on the side of the back or back of the structure, and then the roof of the structure may be finished in a type of shingle commonly used in conventional residential construction, or a metal construction of at least 26 gauge steel or .040 aluminum standing seam. You see the considerations for the request of a special exception. Proposed use, staff does not feel that the proposed use will be detrimental, nor will the use cause any adverse effects on the adjacent properties. Staff does not anticipate any depreciating effects on the neighboring property with the requested use. Subject property is roughly 7 acres in size, 2 acres more than the minimum required by code, and the proposed site plan in the packet is compliant with the regarding setbacks. Applicant is compliant with the requirements of this ordinance. If approved, the applicant will be able to proceed with an application for building permit and will be subject to the requirements of that process and any conditions imposed by this board or the Board of Commissioners when it comes by there. But staff does recommend the application for approval.
Okay, do we have anything that's coming from the board?
No.
Okay, well, since the staff had already recommended under conditions, do we have a,
Can I ask a question? Brad, we're
Okay.
supposed to have photos showing compliance with the part of the definition. Do we have photos of the barn-dominium or design of the
We have
barn?
not had any illustrated pictures yet.
All right.
Figured we'd do that at the time of the building permit.
I did actually send did have a few,
Okay.
with the layout plan of it. I've actually got them right here, drawn
Okay.
out. So if y'all like to take a look at them, I've got the floor plan of the house portion as well as the exterior structure, which is,
So do you have the elevations of it?
yeah, I
showing
do
the
have
exterior?
elevations of it, so. It does not note any of the materials being used on the exterior,
Okay,
but it does have the porches drawn in properly, the window spacing and all that,
okay.
so.
He will be asked about that by BOC,
Okay?
so you'll, if you can have pictures in your elevations, that would be helpful when you come back to BOC.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, we'll receive that.
Okay, yeah.
Now, Newton, if we approve this, do we need to condition anything about that, or will BOC take care of that at
And I
that
believe
time?
BOC will cover it, but in the definition of barn dominium, there's a requirement that it be consistent with certain photographed elevations and designs that we had in order, so we're not just approving a Butler building
Right,
with a living room. So, since you're just a recommending body, and given the fact that he was held up last month, let's just get it on to BOC
Okay.
and have, excuse me, have those available for BOC to look at.
So we can approve it, we don't have to worry about conditioning it?
That's correct.
Okay,
And I hate, Brad, I hate to bring that up, but I know The last one, we've only had one go through, and the elevations and the architectural design was significant to BOC.
Okay.
Well, that's already in code, so that's already stipulated.
So now, when you say pictures, does he need to, because typically it'll be presented and then included in the packet. He can't just come up with what he has tonight. It has to be something presented prior to get into their packet?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we had
Get it in.
submitted those, and I thought we'd sent you another email with a copy of those as well, with the elevations. Like I said, the elevations do not show the paneling and the stuff, but it does have everything else there, so.
May have been subject, there's a lot of folks I need to buy a second vowel from with my last name, so may have been subject to that.
Okay.
That came in, but I think these would be compliant, just looking at them here.
Okay. With staff approval, can we get a motion on that from board?
Madam Chairman or Chairwoman, I would like to make a motion to approve application 21-68S.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. I see it. Thank you. Okay, we're now ready for our third application, 21-69, V. Margaret, what's that?
Nicholson.
Nicholson, owner, 137 King Richard Drive, approximately 7.23 acres, located in land lot 60 in the 3rd Land District, requesting a variance to install a 30 by 20 accessory structure in the front yard. Do we have someone here represent that application? Okay, one of you all would like to speak? Come up and tell us your name and tell us.
My name is Margaret Nicolation.
Okay, come on up. Thank you. Raise your right hand and you give your address. Thank you.
137 King Richard.
Okay, and tell us a little bit more about it.
It's a 20 by
Oh.
50
Okay.
accessory building.
Okay,
That's all it is.
okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, this application?
Yes,
Thank you so much.
I do. Yes, it's just a 20 by 50 accessory building. You know, for like a lawn tractor, side by side, zero turn, stuff like that. It's just an accessory building. Don't know what else to tell you.
Okay. Do we have anything come from the board? You would like to ask a question or something?
I believe there's more people that'd like to speak to this.
Okay.
Do you have a sign-in
8
sheet?
people, okay, all right. Okay,
Do we have the sign-in sheet?
We do. Curtis Jackson.
yes.
All right, hold my right hand up. I'm Curtis Jackson.
Okay.
I represent Atlantic Demolition Excavation Company. I run a small grading company.
Mr. Jackson, can we get your address, please?
Yes, you can. Just let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's P.O. Box 2966, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I was contacted by Miss Margaret to kind of level land so she could put this accessory building up. So we took a look at the land. I took a look at the land. Her land, if you kind of, she live on the cul-de-sac. So when you talk about definition for it's like side yard, backyard, her lot is kind of like a trapezoid. You know, trapezoid, not like a pie, but kind of like a trapezoid shape. And when you look at the lot, exactly where a house at, once you go behind the house, the lot just dropped off immediately. I'm just dropped down immediately. So one many places that we kind of level the land off to get a, level pad for it. So, without doing, much damage, we didn't take down any trees, we just basically took down brush,
Okay.
So I think it was an issue, concern that she might need a variance, as well as the code says that, accessory building supposed to be in the backyard. But the way her lot is shaped and the way the house is skewed, because it's in a cul-de-sac, it's just not a square, perfect, rectangular box. It's just not square, So, you know, for me looking at it, I think that she's in compliance with what code really want. And also, if you kind of lean back, all the codes were kind of developed from common law. And you take a lot with 2 streets or something in a cul-de-sac, the rear yard and the side yard can kind of be the same depending on how the house is set on the lot and the way it's skewed in there.
Okay.
Lisa Jones. Lisa Jones.
Okay, will you,
Hi, I'm Lisa Jones. I live at 138 King Richard Drive.
okay, you swear that,
I do, yes, ma'am.
thank you.
I'm not really for this, because it would appear that this building might be to support a commercial building, considering there's already a detached garage on this property, and there's a lot of cars that park in the lot, and there's a tow truck that comes and goes all the time. So it seems like what they already have is sufficient for a residential house, and it wouldn't fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you.
Joanne Cobb.
I'm Joanne Cobb. I live at 100 Robin Hood Circle
Okay.
in Nottingham Estates.
Okay, you swear it in, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate this time. Nottingham Estates has been there since '98 or maybe '97. We've been there 15 years. We love it. It's a nice neighborhood. It's well kept. The yards are, and since this has come up, we had noticed that there's been wreckers. There's been even a carrier, a car carrier or a truck carrier coming in there to the back cul-de-sac. Someone even stated, and I know that's secondhand, but I also saw it, a wrecked car on the back of a wrecker there. We don't know what's going on in that part of the neighborhood, really. But we do hear dogs barking late at night, real late at night. Some mention maybe breeding, maybe, I don't know. We don't know. But dogs barking early in the morning, hours after midnight. We want our neighborhood to stay this way, like we have it now. It's made up of nothing but families with children, with grandchildren coming in and out. And we really want our neighborhood to stay that way with just trash trucks and FedEx and things like that coming in without having car carriers and all that coming in. And two, you know, these big trucks and all that come in and out there, they're gonna tear our road up. We don't have but 3 streets in there. That's all we got. And we're responsible for our own road. If a pothole gets in it, we're gonna have to go out there and fix it. And we don't need this in this real nice neighborhood that we're living in. And I thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Janet McClure.
Okay, would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
I'm Janet McClure. I live at 131 King Richard Drive.
Okay,
And I do live, there's 2 houses between me and this location. And there are a lot of traffic going in and out of that house. I have gone down there in the street many times and counted as many as 14 cars and vehicles in their front yard almost all the time. And I go down there regularly. And I have seen from my yard the wreckers go in and out. And it's interesting that in all of the variance paperwork that we have, it's a 30 by 20 building, and tonight it's a 20 by 50 building. I don't understand that. And why would you need a 50-foot building for a 0-turn mower? That seems excessive. It seems big, and I'm sorry, it would be a major eyesore in our neighborhood in that front yard. If you look on the plat, they've already got a building back to the side. They've got a garage. I believe they've got a carport, or maybe they don't, but with all of that, why is that not enough to put a 0-turn if that's what the purpose really is? I believe it's for another purpose that would be dangerous to our community and our neighborhood, and I am firmly, firmly against it.
Will Graham.
Will Graham, I live at 105 Robin Hood Circle.
Okay.
So,
You
I think-
swear to tell the truth?
I do swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
I believe everyone's covering most of the issues. I would begin by saying, though, that the reason that we are here is because it's already been determined that something like this is not acceptable in a subdivision. A 20 by 50 building is 1,000 square feet. That is the footprint of a house, right? And so you're asking to put something with the footprint of a house where a house already sits. If you look that up, online, you will see pictures of 2-car garages and that type of stuff. And so I would suggest maybe someone needs to investigate if there's commercial use going on in this facility. I would also say that when we went by just a couple of days ago, the sign stating that this meeting was going to happen, the frame was there, but the actual cardboard had been ripped up and it was on the floor, or on the ground. So I don't know, right? I know there's some stipulations about, it has to be advertised that we're having this meeting. I also have a petition that was just started 3 days ago that I can share with everyone that has comments. In 3 days, there's 21 signatures. A lot of the comments mention what's already been said, cars coming in and out. I think we drove by today, there may have been a dozen cars in the lot, 10 cars in the front yard, something like that. So it's really simple to understand, right, that we do not want this type of traffic. It will be detrimental to everyone's property value in the subdivision, and it's already been deemed unacceptable by this county in the statutes and the stipulations that are already there. So, thank you.
Jana Graham.
Raise your right hand.
My name
State
is-
your name and address.
My name is Jana Graham, and I'm located at 105 Robin Hood Circle, the spouse of the person who just spoke. And I will
Okay.
tell the truth, the truth.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to comment too much because everything has already been stated for the record. My husband and I are the longest-term residents in Nottingham Estates. We've been there almost 24 years. I take great pride in our neighborhood, and so much pride in the fact that I'm still in touch with the original landowner, Mr. Allen Haddock, who actually developed covenants for our property that only expired a few years ago due to an illness on my part. And we are looking, as of right now, into getting our covenants reestablished to protect our neighborhood, to keep our property values high. I love this county. I'm born and raised in this county, and I want to protect my neighbors. I love all of our neighbors, and I don't mean any harm, but I'm also very tired of the dogs barking at 2 a.m. I'm tired of the constant flow of cars. I've personally seen cars going in and out on flatbeds. There are in excess of 15 cars at any given time. And there again, the signage for this meeting, to advertise this meeting, was destroyed. And that's it. And I'm
Thank you.
firmly against this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Schaefer.
Okay, will you raise your right hand, please?
Name's John Schaefer. I'm at 134 King Richard Drive, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
That's on the curb.
Okay.
Just like everybody else has said, I've got a picture I just showed him with the flatbed tow truck also towing another car behind it, parked in the front yard 5 feet off of the street. I believe it's also going to be used for a commercial business. They've also been in and out of there. I'm sure they want to put the 15 cars out of sight. If you were to put this building, and now that we know it's a 20 by 50 and not a 20 by 30, this would eat up the front yard, where basically that would be the house structure that you saw driving down the road before you saw the house. Because as you drive the cul-de-sac, the trees block the house until you get almost up to it, but where they're gonna put it over on the other side, that would be the presentation in that yard, which I believe would be detrimental to our property values. To mention the traffic with the children that we do have in the neighborhood, and most of us take it easy through the neighborhood, but I've seen a Ram truck, one of them going through there at a pretty excessive speed, trying to get into home or whatever it is. We've had issues with that with other people in the neighborhood too, but it usually subsides after somebody asks them or says something to them about it. But safety's sake, I think it shouldn't be recommended. For the property values and everything else, I'm definitely against it because I think it's just a precursor to a way to have a commercial business at the end of the cul-de-sac down there, not to have a commercial business where you have it in another location where it's zoned appropriately. And if anybody wants to see this, I can show it to you, just to show you in front of the variance sign, the tow truck with another truck pulled up there parked at night. The dogs you hear, but I hear them from all over. I hear everything from the soccer fields at Tyus Field and back, because I back up to the other direction. You know, animals are animals, but the traffic and all that other stuff, I think, is our biggest, and the eyesore to our neighborhood, which I think most of us consider, because it's an acre or more for each one of our lots, is more of an upscale neighborhood in the area. And we'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
That's all the speakers who have signed up.
Okay. Do we hear anything from the board, or any questions, or?
Well, before staff recommendations is made, if they were putting this in the backyard, would they even have to come before us?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do we govern or regulate the amount of cars that is in a person's yard? Is that in our realm? Thank you. Is that something we could even speak to?
Junk vehicles are classified as vehicles that do not have insurance, they're wrecked, they're damaged, things of that nature. If you happen to be a car buff and you wanted to restore, or have multiple vehicles, technically there's nothing that stipulates the number of cars you can have on your property, but we do stipulate that you can't park them in the side or the front yard. So they would tend to have to be up under some type of garage or carport. When it comes down to that.
Okay. With the flatbed or any commercial tow truck, that type of thing, is that under?
We do govern that.
Okay.
So passenger vehicles, cars and trucks are permitted in residential zoning. So a flatbed or tow truck, as was illustrated in the cell phone picture that they just showed, would not be permitted and would be a code enforcement issue, which would also change this to, not necessarily being a property or an application free of zoning violations. At the time of the report, that was not witnessed when we went to go put the signs out. I will tell you, Tim and I went to go put the signs up. There were 4 cars on the property. I don't recall any dogs barking, but at 4 cars, nothing triggered, a code enforcement type thing. They all looked runnable, but granted, I wasn't checking registration when we put the signs up.
Okay.
Some of those photos that they've shown there leads me to believe that there may be a violation of this property at this time.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Could I present him with one more thing?
Yes, you can.
Mr. Schaefer, if you
Mr.
would,
Chairman, he-
Mr. Schaefer, if you would, go to
Okay,
the
I thought he
microphone,
was,
please, to explain what's happening.
Then
Go to the
back to the
microphone to
mic.
explain
Yeah.
what you're doing.
I'm showing him a picture that I took when I also took the other picture of that, of the multiple cars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean,
What, we can't hear you.
Madam Chair, for the record, there's multiple cars that are there.
Have him forward.
uncovered.
If you would, forward the pictures to Brad so that they can be included in the record, please.
Yes, sir.
I'll have to have an,
I'll get you my email address. After the meeting, yeah, if you don't mind hanging out.
That's fine.
So,
Can I be allowed to speak?
Staff?
It's discretionary, Ms.
District.
McCord.
Yes.
It's discretionary.
Okay.
Madam Chair, it's going to be at the discretion of the board.
Okay.
If y'all wish to allow her to speak again, you probably have to make it the form of a motion. And
Okay,
grant her the microphone. Am I correct on that?
We usually don't require a motion, but if you want to take more testimony from somebody else, it's within your discretion to do it.
Okay, well.
It seems to me that it's gonna keep going back and forth.
Keep going on and on.
Yeah. We've already heard,
We already heard the most of it.
we know what they're asking for. We know what the application says.
Yes.
We've already heard from the residents. I mean, not unless there's something groundbreaking.
Again, it's discretionary.
Well, we gotta come to a, agreement, from this, the staff and the board.
Well, we'll go ahead with staff.
Go with the staff, see.
Yes, ma'am. Originally, at the time of the report, we were looking, the applicant had wished to install an accessory structure of a 30 by 20 metal shed in the front yard of a property. Soil conditions and elevations were unique to the property, created the need for the proposed location to be in the front yard. And I was gonna show y'all, so you see on the aerial photo, the location of the house and the location of the property. When you look at Q Public, so you can get in a better zoom. From a building perspective, the way the house is oriented is always gonna generate your front build line. So the front door being here, this becomes the front build line of the house. So to answer, Ms. Tangela's question from earlier, if this was being built behind that line, we would have simply have permitted the structure. It would have had to pass the zoning or setbacks for the underlying zoning, but would not require a variance for the Board of Appeals meeting. So with the conditions that were unique to the backside of the lot, staff made the recommendation that it be approved, but if the structure was to be built, it was to be finished in the same color and style of the house, or was to be visually screened from the street and the adjacent property to the east via a planted buffer. Seeing some of the things that are in the photo, staff cannot make that recommendation at this time because it does look like there are violations present at the property.
Now, it was mentioned also that instead of it being a 30 by 20, it was now 20 by 50. Did I miss something? Or did something change? Was it still?
That is news to staff.
Okay, okay, so still 30 by 20 is what we know?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
She testified that it would be 20 by 50.
Oh, okay, I must have missed that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that's, I wondered where that came from. Okay, okay. All right.
We have here from the, board,
Well, at this,
at this time.
okay. Well, at this time, I move that we deny application 21-69V.
Second.
Okay, all in,
Because that tow truck don't stay there.
okay, Madam, okay, all in favor, we're talking out of order, let's get back in order, all in favor,
Please forgive me, who seconded the motion?
second.
Slaughter.
Second.
Pete,
Okay.
second. Carl, raise your hand, you better raise your hand for recommendation, thank you. Second,
So the application is denied by a vote of 4-0.
okay. Okay. Okay, our next application, 2171V, Ricardo S. Castellas, owner, 46 Lake. I missed this one, yeah. Application 2170 S. Joseph and Jane Bailey, owner, Chad Chitdale, agent, 4075 Noonan Road, approximately 26.91 acres located in land lot 30 of the First Land District, requesting a special exception to control a proposed fence telecommunication tower. Do we have someone here representing that case? Will you give us your name and your address and swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
My
Thank-
name's Chad Caudell. I
Thank you.
represent AT&T and Joe Bailey.
Okay,
My address is 202 Marina Drive, St. Simons Island, Georgia.
okay. Tell us a little about your application.
Sure, so AT&T, in an effort to improve cell phone coverage in the area around Griffin, phone coverage, FirstNet, and we need to, the FirstNet is also, it's for E911 addressing, the service that actually provides a connection of 700 megahertz designated for the government, first responders, EMS, fire. So this will provide for the entire community. It is to bridge the gap in coverage between, along Highway 16 from Griffin, Georgia to Sonoya, Georgia, and also between Williamson, Georgia and Brooks, Georgia. It's a 195-foot monopole cell tower. That's the minimum height that the radio frequency engineers have agreed is enough to provide adequate service to the area. The properties around the proposed tower are all zoned rural community. I want everybody to know that AT&T's intent is to co-locate before we ever propose a new tower. And in this case, as we noted in the application package, there are two towers that are within 2.5 miles of the proposed tower. One is an American Tower site that's about 1.8 miles north of the proposed tower site. AT&T is already on that tower. And then the Crown Castle Tower, it's a 193-foot monopole. It's about 0.6 of a mile south of our proposed tower. That structure failed miserably when we ran the structural analysis, and it's going to require over $270,000 in modifications in order for it to support our equipment. And it would also be very difficult or impossible to add anything else to the tower once we need to modify or add equipment at that point. We believe that we are complying with the code. There will be a natural galvanized steel finish for the material of the tower. It will be designed to accommodate up to 4 carriers. We'll use a 6-foot barbed wire fence that'll be surrounded by, there's already an existing foliage and undergrowth, so we'll be buffered from the adjoining properties. We are requesting, the fenced area will be 60 by 60 initially. It's a 100 by 100 lease area that we have worked out with Mr. Bailey. We are requesting, I don't know if it's needed, a landscape buffer waiver, just because due to the topography around the site and the existing natural buffer that we have with the trees and all, it'll be very difficult to see the tower, especially the compound. The nearest property line is to the north at, we're 364 feet to the nearest residential home to the north, and it's about 170 feet to the north property line. 600 feet to the west approximately, 800 feet to the south in Highway 16. But we respectfully ask for a recommendation of approval. Upon approval, we will obtain all the remaining federal requirements, FAA, FCC, do our Phase 1 environmental, and so on.
Okay, do we hear anything
From the board?
Do we have any pictures or anything that show what will be going up and where it's situated on the land? Anything that will help kind of give us a visual?
Do you know which attachment?
Oh,
I know I've got it in a hard copy file.
okay.
So I'd look at the CDs or?
In the application.
Yes, in the,
So if we scroll down,
Everything that is submitted was uploaded online.
okay.
searching for that, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Bailey, you had signed up to speak. Are you wanting to speak this evening?
Raise your right hand and state your name and your address.
Joe Bailey, 4079H Noonan Road.
Thank you.
Um,
Swearing in. Thank
I'm on
you.
the same property this was. I just want, even though the lot size is 26 acres that we're talking about putting this on, I have 178 contiguous acres around it, so it's not just, there's plenty of land right there. That's the only thing I really wanted to say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, it appears we have the structural analysis report, but the actual site plan is not there. It would possibly be on the hard drive upstairs, so.
Do we have their affidavit regarding the propagation maps and you stated, Mr. Collard, that you have provided the inventory of existing tower sites within 2.5 miles?
Yes, sir. So the inventory of towers within 2.5 miles includes, and there are only two. The first one I mentioned, American Tower to the north, 1.8 miles, that AT&T's already co-locating on and providing service to the community from. And the Crown Castle site, 0.6 of a mile south of the site, which was the tower site that failed. And pursuant to Appendix I, Section 5D is in Delta 5 of the code, if the cost exceeding new tower development to fix a tower, to make it structurally sound, if they exceed the cost of a new tower development, then it is considered unreasonable. And that is one way to look at this and look favorably upon approving this new tower. I do have also to your second question, I have the RF memo right here that I printed out from the engineers. And it indicates the before and after coverage. So there's the propagation showing the lack of coverage here. And you can see the oranges and yellows indicate where there's good coverage, and the blues and greens indicate where it's lacking or non-existent. And then there's the after coverage where it really fills in. But I can leave this with y'all.
If you would, so that can be part of the record.
Sure.
And Brad, do we have the affidavit, do we have an affidavit from AT&T stating that, confirming what he's just said, that they have approached the other tower operators?
Yes, sir. We have that in digital form. I know I've got that from Chad and
Yes, sir.
and several
Okay,
attachments.
just checking.
So it looks like it's just in the hard drive.
Okay,
For whatever
just
reason,
checking.
we didn't put it in the file.
Yeah, we have that from Crown Castle as well on their
Okay.
letterhead.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay. We hear anything from the board?
Now, is there anyone signed up?
No one else has signed up.
No one else? Okay. All
Okay,
right.
we'll hear from the staff. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good.
Madam Chairman, you see the location of the map when it comes in. So the site itself is approximately 26.91 acres, in land, in size. It is zoned, or has split zoning, if you look at the zoning map, with the front portion of the parcel being R2, the back portion being AR1. When you put the over two together, the tower itself is going to be kind of towards this backside, accessed off of the backside. But accessed off of the back acres road that will come over. So the applicant does request a special exception to construct a proposed fenced telecommunications tower compound consisting of a tower, multi-mounted equipment, ground level equipment, access drive, and utilities from the right-of-way. Property has approximately 13.92 acres worth of AR1 zoning and 11.52 acres of R2 zoning, with the front portion being the R2, the back being the AR1. The proposed location of the new telecommunications tower will be on the AR1 portion of the property. And tower antenna meeting the standards of development criteria for Spalding County is a permissible use for AR1 via the special exception process only. So it will have to be before this board and made a recommendation made to the Board of Commissioners. Factors considered by the Board of Appeals. Board of Appeals shall consider the following factors in determining whether to approve the tower and/or antenna as a special exception, and can waive or reduce the burden of the applicant of one or more of the following criteria. So the height of the proposed tower. The proposed height of the tower is 195 feet with up to 4 carriers. Ordinance does stipulate that for 3 or more carriers, tower heights are limited to 150 feet. So the board will need to determine if you can reduce or waive the burden on making them hit the 150-foot requirement so they can hit the 195-foot requirement. Proximity of the tower to the residential structures. Proposed tower is going to be at least 371 feet away from the nearest residential structure. And the fall distance will be well out of the fall distance of the tower will be well away from the nearest residence, so there's no danger of it ever falling into that house. The use of the surrounding properties are predominantly single-family detached residences and associated agricultural uses. Approximately 1/2 mile to the west of the intersection of Roper Zatella and Noonan Roads, there's a commercial node of properties that's zone C1. Everything else is going to be AR1 and residential use around the area. There are no significant topographical features surrounding the property. Gentle rolling slopes to the northeast of the property, and the property falls towards the lake on the adjacent side as it comes to the northeast. There are some existing trees and foliage around the proposed location. A portion of these trees would qualify for a visual screening. So if you go back to the actual aerial map where the tower will be located, they would probably still have to plant the side, facing Noonan Road and the side facing Black Acres. The remaining trees could be left there as a visual screen, and it would still be compliant with, the way our zoning states. Tower's monopole design will be painted gray or sky blue in order to minimize the visual obtrusiveness. The cost to upgrade to the nearest tower to accommodate the same amount of carriers is greater than the cost of actually constructing a new tower. And then the application is compliant with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Staff does recommend approval of the application, but the board will need to waive the 150-foot height requirement to allow for the 195-foot tall tower to be constructed and installed, and be able to recommend the use of some natural vegetation as part of their visual buffer that they will have. They will still have to plant at least 2 sides.
Okay, we've heard from the staff. What do we hear?
How many towers do we have that exceed 150 feet? Do you know?
I do not know. That'd be a question for Mr. Mike.
How far off the runway do you think the Griffin Airport is this tower? And that's pretty much in direct line.
I don't know that answer. I do know that just the nearest tower, you've got a 250-foot lattice tower just 1.8 miles north of our proposed tower, and you've got a 193-foot monopole just south, 0.6 of a mile. So we're wedged right in the middle.
Most of the towers are at 150 or above.
Or above.
Or above.
Yeah.
So 150 minimum is
It-
typical.
and
More or less.
Obviously, the higher the tower, the greater the coverage area, the greater the void, the larger void area is filled.
Could I just add one thing? RF Engineers prefers 250 feet for this location in an effort to be sensitive to the community and aesthetics of the structure, and noticing other structures around, like the monopole crown site was also just 2 feet lower than the one we're proposing at 193 feet. We thought it best to try and make this work at 195 feet, and RF agreed that they could go down to that level.
Okay.
You're almost 6 miles.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
That is
Thank
for
you.
the airport question? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Do we hear anything from anybody else, board or staff? Okay, what do we? hear from the
I
board.
I would advise the board that under FCC decisions, the ability to deny the tower requires substantial evidence. That's the evidence standard to establish that it should not be there.
Okay.
Okay, do I hear from the
Well,
board?
then, guess we've gotten our marching orders. I guess we move approval of application 21-70S
At the 195 feet.
at the 195 feet. Yes.
I second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, our next
So that's
application.
unusual in a tower case. to
Right,
have
I heard the
people
clapping, I'm
for it.
thinking, uh-oh.
That's unusual.
Nobody was speaking for it.
Okay. Okay,
This goes to the Board of Commissioners on the 24th.
Yes, sir.
Did he leave? He go? Okay.
okay. Our next application, 21-71V, Ricardo S. Castellas, owner, 460 Lakeside Drive, approximately 0.84 acres, located in land lot 23 of the First Land District, requesting a variance to the front yard setback. Do we have someone here? Okay, thank you. You come up and state your name, your address, and tell
My
us a
name is
little bit.
Ricardo Sustaita Lopez. I'm
Okay.
speaking on behalf of my parents.
Okay, you
And,
swear to tell the
it-
truth, raise your right hand.
Yeah,
You
swear to
okay.
tell the truth.
Thank you.
Living currently at
Okay,
490 Lakeview Drive, which is right in front of this property.
okay,
And we're requesting a variance because of the style home they want, a 50 by 60 southern home. Would need to be at approximately 80 feet from the road. And I think the setback is 100. That's it.
okay. Do we hear anybody else signed up to speak for this?
We got anybody else?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we hear from the board? You have any questions from the board? Okay, we'll hear from the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the property is located at 460 Lakeview Drive, and it's approximately 0.84 acres in size. It is a lawful non-conforming lot, so it has been properly recorded. It's just a remnant of something from years ago that comes in. So the applicant is requesting a variance to the front yard setback of AR 1. So current code stipulates that you must have a 100-foot setback in the AR 1 zoning. If a 100-foot setback were implemented, the proposed home would only be 15 feet from the rear of the property line. Code also dictates that the rear yard setback in AR1 is 25 feet. So he would be requesting a variance that a ways if he respected the front yard setback. There's another residential lot behind the subject property with a house already developed on it. The request to reduce the front yard setback would allow for both of them to coexist with a greater buffer between the two homes, so that way they wouldn't hear each other grilling on the back porch and the front porch, type thing. Property is zoned AR1. Appendix A, Article 5, you see states the minimum front yard depth for the considerations of the variance. Hardship cannot be self-created. The Casillas family did not create this on their own. They merely purchased a older lot that was left over. So it was not purchased, or it was not created by themselves. Applicant has no intentions of selling the property. This is to be developed, to be their forever home. There is no expressed economic need, based on the, based or creating the variance. It's based on the unique conditions of the property. So with the existence of another home on the rear property, with the existence of the other home on the adjacent property, the variance to the front yard setback would be more suitable to the two houses, that are the residents that are going to be out there. The subject property is lawful non-conforming lot of record below the minimum modern-day requirement of 3. The depth of the lot is only 162 feet at the proposed house location. The proposed footprint of the house that would be developed is a 50 by 60 home. If the location of the house were moved to the eastern portion of the lot, it's also the low-lying level of the lot. So every time it rained, they would have to literally build themselves a moat around the house if they built on the eastern side of the lot. So the difficulty created would be the additional expense of redesigning the entire grade of the eastern side of the lot if they were forced to obey the 100-foot front yard setback. The conditions are unique to this parcel, so it's not it's not something that will be precedent setting if you were to approve this. If the board were to approve it, the public good and intent of the ordinance will be preserved. A literal interpretation of the ordinance would cause the applicant to request a variance to the rear setback. We covered that. Variance would be considered, or would be consistent with limitations imposed by this ordinance for other properties in the same zoning classification, and would be a better option to the surrounding properties than requesting the variance to the rear. If the variance were granted, the existing conditions of the underlying zoning would still be imposed, so the health, safety, and welfare will be preserved to the property and neighbors surrounding it. The conditions of the subject property are the only aspect of consideration for the variance of this request. No other outside conditions created it. Staff does recommend the approval of the request to reduce the front yard setback from 100 to 80 feet.
Okay, we heard from the staff on approval. Can I get a motion from the board on this application?
I move approval of application 21-71V.
I second.
We heard the second coming from the board. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, so approved. Thank you. Our next application, 2172V, Bill Bergen, owner, agent Rich Phillip, agent 848, Dusky Sap Court, approximately 0.14 acres located in the land lot 186 of the 3rd Land District, requesting a variance to the rear yard setback to accommodate a 12 by 14 gable porch. Do we hear anything from the board on this application?
Are they here?
Are you here?
Mr. Rich Phillips is wanting to
Okay.
speak this evening.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, raise your right hand, state your name and your address.
Rich Phillips, 120 Carlisle Street, Noonan, Georgia,
Okay.
and I do swear to tell the
Swear to tell the truth, thank you.
I'm the acting contractor on behalf of Mr. Bergen here to construct a 12 by 14 screen porch and an extension of a paver patio adjacent to the screen porch. Given pictures of the existing residence showing both sides from each house and then from the rear back, showing the accommodations of what we're asking, which I believe was ended up being 6 feet. For that extension to allow us to have that structure built.
Do we hear anything from the board?
Do we have
Any
anyone signed up?
questions?
No one has signed up
Okay.
to speak.
And I'm gonna apologize in advance, Brad, because you were not on staff at the time, but I know we've had, because is this Sun City?
Yes, ma'am.
We've had a few, and we've gone around the bend a couple times about sight lines and views and
Patios.
and pitches and aesthetics.
Yes, yes.
I know we've approved, we've denied. Where are we in how this particular one relates to ones we've approved? Do you even know?
Actually did not know that there were others, that y'all had. Was trying to take this into account on a case-by-case basis. I
Okay.
know they've got community association out there at Sun City Peachtree. Part of the staff report, we have actually been in contact with the manager of the community association. We do stipulate that if this were to be approved tonight, prior to obtaining the building permit, he would have to submit an approval from the community association at Sun City Peachtree in order for us to grant that permit. Taking into account if you, just this lot in and of itself, because there's a lot of houses that are out at Sun City Peachtree. This one's one of those that it really does not have that much of a rear yard to, that's able to be developed. But when you look at the conditions surrounding this lot and everything else kind of on the street, the property to the rear is always going to be the green space of Sun City Peachtree. When it comes in, it also is adjacent to one of the holes of the golf course. So if you were to push back the variance to allow the applicant to construct, a larger porch and larger screened-in area, you're not really encroaching on someone else. You're encroaching upon green space. Now, if you were to fast forward and look down the street, if you were to allow everyone that also abuts that green space to encroach on their rear property line, you would just extend the property line, as it comes down, and encroaches green space. I do not think the request would be detrimental because it's going to the rear property line. Now, if you were going to the side and the person to the east and the person to the west wanted to encroach on the side property lines, you could have a tunneling effect on the house in the middle if somebody were to do it. But so it was under kind of that premise that staff was able to, see if the board wishes to approve, staff would, recommend, or staff would recommend approval simply because you would not be affecting another person by encroaching the rear yard setback by, I believe it was only 6 to 8 feet. And you've still got a 20-foot rear build line, so there's still going to be 14 feet between that and the actual property line.
Okay, we've heard from the staff. So we're gonna make a motion for on the staff.
Brad, are there others on this road on Dusky Sap that have similar back porches? Because the concern that was expressed that we had in the prior case that Tangela was referencing that generated some controversy was that they didn't want to have one that extended out further, a lot further than the one that was next door that was not allowed to extend out much further. Are there any that we know of that are in the back of those houses?
There are no applications waiting to, to encroach our rear buffer. There may be some other porches, on the back. If you look at the Q Public site, it's probably the most up-to-date stuff that we have. There are some other, some folks have porches, some folks have patios.
So from the setback, the actual variance is 6 feet from the existing setback. In other words, you're going from 20 to 14.
14, yes, sir.
Okay, Tangela, if I'm correct, in the prior applications that came through, Deborah approved or recommended approval up to 8 feet,
Okay,
I believe.
okay.
I believe. So this would be, I believe, within the range, because the variance is actually just 6 feet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was.
Now, the size of this 12 by 14 gable porch, is that typical of what we?
Now, that one I don't recall.
That's
Okay.
pretty, I don't want to speak out of turn, I apologize for that, but that's pretty prototypical. I've been building that community since 2008. I've been building almost this identical porches throughout the entire community and patios, and they're all are pretty typical of 12 by 14 to 16.
Okay. So you've been the troublemaker creating?
No,
Oh,
ma'am.
I'm just kidding,
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, that's
I
him.
could not
Hey, that's
resist,
him.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
him.
sorry, I apologize.
I was actually the one that was proactive. I
Oh,
helped the
okay.
community transition their HOA.
Okay.
I was part of, sat down with the board of Sun City and helped that from Pulte to the HOA community through Sun City. So I was actively in that.
Okay, okay.
Just so y'all will know, you're not being picked on.
No, I understand.
But we have had circumstances where adjoining neighbors came in and with some Sun City Peachtree vehemence opposed somebody being able to encroach further back.
Right.
All right, so it has been a problem. The distance has been a problem
Yes, sir.
before.
Yeah, we're not trying to wake that giant again, because Sun
I
City comes
understand.
out in
Nor are
full
we.
force.
And
Okay,
everyone on this board survived that battle.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, if there's no other conversation, I'll put my neck on the chopping block and say that I vote to approve application 21-72V.
I'll jump in there with you. I second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you, been approved.
And just for a point of order, that is to include the stipulation that the community association will have to approve.
Absolutely.
The architectural
After,
review committee will
yeah,
have to approve it prior to the
Yeah,
issuance
it will
of the
have to go
building permit.
further.
With all staff
With our staff
recommendation, yes.
I've already given that information, so we were just waiting for this approval so I could in
Go
turn
to
get
the
that for
next,
it.
Okay.
right, the next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That concludes the meeting for tonight. We just approve of the minutes.
We don't have 7 and 8?
No, ma'am, Ms.
They
Tangi,
didn't
you
come,
came in late. 7 and 8, to recap for the board members, we've discovered, or they discovered early this morning that they would require a second variance. So instead of putting it through piecemeal to the boards, they requested that we hold the application until they can get the second variance, and then we're gonna put everything before the board next month, so that way it can all arrive at the VOC at the same time. So 7 and 8 were pulled from tonight's meeting sometime early this morning, so.
Do we
9, 10 o'clock.
motion and table that, or just not acting on it speaks for itself?
Either one, Tangela's fine. If you want to make a motion to table, make certain that's to the next meeting.
Okay, we'll make a motion to table it to the next meeting. What do I hear?
So moved.
Second. Raise your right hand. All agree? Thank you. That being said, on approval of the minutes, last minutes, December 9th, we wasn't here. That was the meeting canceled, wasn't it?
No, that was January.
January,
We were
okay.
here in December.
Okay, approval of the minutes of December the 9th, 2021 meeting.
I move approval of the December 9th, 2021 minutes.
Okay. What do I hear?
I second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Do we have any other business on the table for tonight?
Madam Chair, nothing else from the staff. We thank you again for your commitment. Thank supporting staff, Newton, Ms. Teresa, Mr. Steve, Eva. Couldn't do it without you.
Okay. So the meeting is adjourned. If nothing, can I hear in the motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Somebody
All
use-
right. Second.
Oh, okay.
Raise your right hand.
All
Thank
right.
you. So moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.